Hockey Talk Show on a Monday. Let's call it a Monday. Hockey Talk Show live here with you on Facebook and YouTube. And, of course, if you're streaming on Instagram or Spotify, all the other streaming things, thanks for podcasting with us on the audio side of stuff. We got a good show planned for you tonight. I think, honestly, one of the greatest moves I've seen in not only the National Hockey League, but sports in general in the last 100-some-odd years was the title of this very show. The move that this young kid did in the World Championships was ridiculously, unbelievably, wonderfully, fantastically brilliant. And I loved every bit of it. Lias Anderson, and we're going to get into this in a big way, wins silver at the Hockey World Championships, the Junior World Championships, takes the medal and says, "This is what I think of your second place finish," chucks it into the crowd seconds after actually receiving the honor bestowed upon him by the organizers of the World Hockey Junior Championships. I've never seen this in junior hockey history, international competition history. I can't remember the last time somebody got a medal, a prestigious honor, a wonderful thing for representing their country. They took it and said, "Thanks for nothing. I hate that we got second place and not first. Let me go ahead and send this one into the crowd." And that is exactly what he did. And it was an unbelievable moment. So we will be covering that on tonight's episode of the Hockey Talk Show, or this morning's episode of the Hockey Talk Show, depending on when you're listening to this on the podcast. If you're on the Facebooks or the YouTubes, make sure you comment below so I know that you guys are here, so we can custom make the show towards you and the teams that you like to watch, because I can talk about damn near anything. And don't threaten me with a good time. I'll talk about every one of your favorite hockey teams and what's going on with them right now at this very moment. There is a ton going on with the Edmonton Oilers. We might just get into that. Of course, the 2018 trade deadline is quickly upon us. We got to talk about the National Hockey League break. This is something new that has been instituted, and they're doing it a little bit different this year. So we will get into that as well. And what else? I felt like we had something else. Oh, the NHL All-Star Game National Hockey League coaches have been named, and we will cycle through that as well. Your questions and comments on Facebook and YouTube, certainly welcome. And, of course, through the phone lines at 631-438-1768. That's 631-438-1768. Let's start off the program with our coaches for the National Hockey League All-Star Game this year, coming up in Tampa. Of course, historically now that we've identified it from the last show as is going to be the absolute worst year for NHL All-Star Game jerseys. But let's talk about it. Here are your coaches, as you can see, from left to right. And if you're listening, I'll describe it fully for you guys. John Cooper of the Tampa Bay Lightning in the Atlantic Division, representing there. Gerard Gallant will be representing the Pacific Division with the Vegas Golden Knights. Peter Laviolette with the Preds in the Central. And Barry Trotz of the Washington Capitals will be running what I think will have the best jerseys this year, the Metropolitan Division. Their teams have the highest points percentages, points earned divided by total possible points in their respective divisions through January 6th. That's the halfway point of the regular season, and that's why they are honored with becoming head coaches of this special 3-on-3 NHL All-Star Tournament. This will be the first All-Star game for Cooper. It kind of makes sense that he's the Lightning coach. It's in Tampa Bay. And he will be he'll be coaching one of the teams. That's a nice thing. Whenever your hometown coach or captain or player is represented in the All-Star game, it always just makes for a better game. It always does. You know, the fans are more into it. It plays well off of TV more. If the fans are into it, then the players there will be into it. Even, those who are opposing the hometown player or team or whatnot. So it just makes a whole bunch of sense. And then plus, as they fill out their rosters, it's always good because they tend to pick their hometown guys a little bit more. And so if you get more Tampa Bay Lightning in the mix, again, I think that'll just make for an overall better game. And by the way, this being literally heads and shoulders the best franchise in the National Hockey League this season, nobody is going to have any issues with them padding the roster with Tampa Bay Lightning players let's again not forget their outstanding goal differential this season so far with a plus 52. I will say that again for those of you who are maybe on a little bit of a slower connection on the stream, plus 52, damn it. That is beyond ridiculous. Beyond ridiculous. I mean, if the National Hockey League turned around and said, you know what we're going to do? We're going to just have the Tampa Bay Lightning take on everybody else in this year's All-Star game. I don't know if anybody would have a problem with that. I think everybody would understand. I think fans of, the Carolina Hurricanes and the New York Islanders and the New Jersey Devils would be pissed at first, but then they'd be like this. I get it. You mean I'm not going to be able to see my favorite player in the All-Star game, but I'll be able to watch Tampa? All right. That's fair trade. That's a fair trade. So excitement builds. I'm always excited to see the All-Star game. I really am. I do love the fanfare of the All-Star game. That's a good comment to start the show off. Let me know in the Facebook or YouTube comments, do you care or look forward to the All-Star game? Here's the thing. I don't much care about it, but I look forward to it. So I like watching the skills competition, and I believe the NHL has the best skills competition out of all the 4 major leagues. By far the best. Just fun watching all their stuff. Although I would like them to bring back the goalie trying to score goals part of the competition. I like that. You remember that year the goaltenders had to shoot over the thing that they laid flat on the ice to score from a faraway distance? I thought that was cool. I thought that was pretty cool. I'll tell you how you make that better. I think they got rid of it because it was like too simple and kind of not exciting. Get rid of the stupid thing in the middle and put one defender against him. Meaning you have a player who has to dump the puck in the ice. This is what I would suggest. Again, I don't mind that I have to fix the entire world. It doesn't, honestly. You'd think I'd be exhausting for me. I don't mind it at all. I think I can fix the world one show at a time. And then we can start by fixing the National Hockey League, which, by the way, doesn't need all that much fixing. I think what you do is you have the goalie's teammate. He dumps the puck in. He rims the puck around. This way, he can rim it in such a way that the goalie likes. Nice and easy. But he still has to handle it. And as soon as he rims it, a defending player on the other team gets to chase down the goaltender. So now you only have a few seconds to settle the puck down, turn around, and fire it back up the ice and try and score. To me, that would be exciting. And I think that would be exciting for goaltenders. Now, if you don't get the excitement behind that, perhaps you're not a goaltender. Now, full disclosure, I am not a goaltender. I'm barely what you would call a beer league hockey player. But in my beer league hockey playing days, forward would be my position. So I'm not a goaltender. But I do know, and I am well aware and am quite close friends with a goaltender. And they're nuts. They're psychotic. Much like drummers in a band. They're special. They're the different ones. You got to pay a little extra care to them. If anybody's going to freak out and mess up everybody in the room, it's the goaltender or the drummer. So I'm well aware of them. If you put that excitement of that goaltending competition back into the game, you're going to have a ton of goaltenders watching. A ton of goaltenders. Eddie V, you're making me laugh right off the top of the show, my man. Your references are one of a kind. Just one of a kind. Again, let me clarify this. I don't care about the All-Star game, but I look forward to it. Meaning, goalies are all scared of clowns. That's probably true. Like, I would fall asleep in the middle of the game. And it wouldn't bother me. You know what I'm saying? I look forward to the whole thing. I like seeing who gets named. I like knowing who the coaches are. I like looking at the jerseys. I like the skills competition. I'll watch the rookie game if they put it on TV anywhere. I like the fanfare of the players coming in and out of the arena. I like watching that stuff. The pregame shows, all the interviews and the player availability that happens during the weekend. We'll hear from Gary Bettman at one point, and he updates us on the league. So I like seeing that stuff. I like that the general managers, for the most part, all get together. A lot of discussion happens. A lot of trade talks can occur during that time. Not every GM goes, but a lot of them do go. So I like that aspect of it, too. And then the game comes and I watch the game. I like the introductions. I like seeing who gets cheered and who gets booed. I like all that stuff, and I'll watch a whole bunch of it. And then if I wander off and have to do something else, I do. If I stay and they got me involved, it's great. I never sit there and go, boy, the game's boring. I never worry about the game from that perspective. It's just all the other great things, And then I always think about the 6 or 7-year-old hockey fan, because that's who the All-Star game is for, not for the older people. We're sitting here worried about stats and the business end of it and all that other stuff. It's for the 6 and 7-year-olds that can say, Corey Schneider's my favorite player and he's going to the All-Star game. Or I love Steven Stamkos and, he's going to the All-Star game. It's for them. It's not for us. And it's for the players and their families and all that stuff too. So, there's a lot of that in it too. So I look forward to the game, but I don't really care about it all that much. Whoever wins or whatever. I like what they do in Major League Baseball. I like that. Like, the team that wins, they get the home field advantage in the World Series. I think that's cool. Whatever they have, I think every sport has to do their own thing to make the All-Star game significant. I wouldn't mind if the NHL did that, but I also wouldn't be, hounding people to do that too. I wouldn't be calling for that to happen, because you can't even... In the current format, as the All-Star game is right now, you can't even do that because let's say the Metropolitan Division wins, but then they don't, not a team not from the Metro Division goes to the Stanley Cup Finals, so it wouldn't even make a difference. Although I guess in that case it would default to the East, but then that really doesn't give you a lot of clout, right? Because technically the Metro Division could play the Atlantic Division in the All-Star game. It is. It's for the kids. It is. It's for the league promotion into new markets. You sell some tickets. You sell some jerseys. The players sign autograph. It is. It is. You're right, Eddie. It is for all those reasons. So it is great. I don't take it too seriously, though, with all these people that are like, get rid of it. It's useless in society nowadays. It's not what it used to be and all that garbage. I don't play for most of that stuff. I think it's still a great part of the game. And I look forward to it again, like, tonight's decision, like, here are the coaches for the All-Star game. To me, it's a point of significance to bring up on the show here tonight because, it's a cool thing to discuss, Certainly they're all worthy of being added to the mix, but, you got to think, the interesting thing here is, they talk about the way these coaches came about. Nashville right now is sitting in the 3rd spot in the Central Division. So Winnipeg and St. Louis both, kind of, when you think about it, have an argument for having their coaches being put into the mix. You could have made the argument that Ken Hitchcock deserves to be there more so than Peter Laviolette. Although I guess some could argue on the other side that Laviolette really deserves to be there because, he went to the Stanley Cup final last year. So it'll be interesting to see what the fallout is and what the opinions are of the people in the National Hockey League world on who these 4 coaches will be. Because really the only controversy you can have is, Ken Hitchcock should have been there instead. That's really the only controversy. Or what's his name up in Winnipeg? Is Paul Maurice? Paul Maurice is still the coach in Winnipeg, right? Kind of lost track of Winnipeg a little bit here. Shame on me. -4 hockey talk show host points for not knowing the head coach of the Winnipeg Jets. How about Canada versus USA in the All-Star? 7 teams versus the other 24. Canada versus USA in the All-Star game, 7 teams versus the other 24. Or you mean the 7 Canadian teams versus the 24 American teams in the All-Star game? Nah, that would never play. Canadians would probably love it, but that would never play. Because it would be too much from the 7 teams and not enough representation from the 24. Think about that. 4 teams would literally not have a representative in the All-Star game, and you flat out can't do that because you got to keep the Arizona market involved somewhat. I mean, it's not a big windfall having Arizona there, but if Oliver Ekman-Larsson isn't in the game, they're really not going to care. Like the hardcore fans are really not going to care. So you got to have every team represented. I kind of like how they have it now. I'm not fully in love with it, but I kind of like it. I did like the years where they had the North America versus the rest of the world format, although it was confusing as hell for anybody who wasn't a diehard hockey fan. If you weren't a diehard hockey fan, you totally didn't understand that. You know, because everybody's so used to East versus West. But the league is trying to pump over this 3-on-3 overtime thing for so many years now, and putting it in the All-Star game was a smart and interesting move. And I don't know if they stay with it for the long term, but it's certainly interesting enough to have right now, I feel. It's not a horrific way to go about, you know, representing your All-Star game. And again, let's give the National Hockey League some credit because they're the only league that takes these big chances. You know, they're the league that comes up with stuff and then the other leagues bite off of, i.e. video review, coaches challenges, and all that stuff. So I give the National Hockey League full credit for all the stuff that they try and do, including this 3-on-3 thing. We're going to talk about Lias. Big fan of this Lias kid throwing the metal over the boards. But first, let's talk about the NHL break. Again, another thing that the National Hockey League is way ahead of the curve on. The big knock on the NBA these days is the fact that their stars love to take games off. You know, these 82-game grueling seasons in both the NHL and the NBA, there's a lot of complaints about, and there's become this, you know, virus-like epidemic in the National Basketball Association where your big stars just take off random nights because they can't stand playing, you know, 3 games in 4 nights or back-to-back games. They don't like doing any of that. So you have these huge stars that take themselves out of the game. I think the Spurs started doing this, if I'm not mistaken. Popovich started doing it. You know, they take themselves out of these games, and now you have games where, you know, you show up to see, you know, the big star that night. You show up to see Kristaps Porzingis. I could have chosen anybody, but I like saying Porzingis' name. And he's not dressed up. He's not in the lineup because, you know, they got to have their nights off. A lot of time off. You know, current athletes get a lot of flack for this. Need that time off. Need that recovery time. I kind of understand people who criticize them. I get it. You have a ton of time off. You know? But on the other hand, I do know that these seasons are a grind and injuries are up, even though athletes are taking way better care of themselves than they ever have before. So there is a little bit of validity to the fact that these athletes do need a little bit more time off. So to combat what has happened in the NBA, where these guys are literally taking themselves out of the lineup, but now you have people who show up, because let's be honest, out of all the leagues, you know, the league that is so star-centric and so not a team sport really is the National Basketball Association. People could care less. Like the New Jersey Devils would never fly in the NBA. It would never happen. The Devils would be a last place abysmal team if they were, you know, focusing on journeymen and, you know, Brad Boyle or Dan Boyle, excuse me. No, Brad Boyle. No, Dan Boyle. Which Boyle is in Brian Boyle? I wasn't even close. Brian Boyle. Forgive me. I started drinking very early this morning. Brian Boyle. Anyway, the point is this, you know, the Devils are a team without any all-stars, and in the NBA, that stuff does not fly. Individuals win games in the National Basketball Association, and they sell tickets and jerseys. In the National Hockey League, it's different. In the National Football League, it is way different. You are far more reliant on the team / the quarterback. You know, baseball is a huge team sport. You could have the 2 best pitchers in the game and still not do all that great. We've seen that time and time again. But the National Basketball Association relies on its players, and if its players aren't dressed, they get a lot of flack. So something the National Hockey League has instituted, well, let's give these players a 5-game or a 5-day break in the middle of the season, and that is what we are in the midst of right now. As we stand right now, there's only 1 game on the schedule for tonight, and it's going to be a slow week all week because half of the league, 15 teams, are on a mandatory league 5-day break right now as we speak. Mandatory 5-day break in the National Hockey League this year. Again, you may not like it. You may not like your team not being in the mix for 5 days. I certainly hate it. But I understand it from a standpoint of it's better for the players and it's better for the health of the teams and all this and that stuff. I totally get it. I totally get it. So I'll abide by it because there's still hockey to watch. It's just that if your team is one of the teams on the break, you're not going to watch your team this week. So how they're working in the league this year is 15 teams off this week, 15 teams off, or 16 teams off next week, which is a smidge different than the way they've done it in the past, whereas everybody's 5-day break came at a different time period in and around this time. So in and around midway through the season, everybody got a 5-day break, but they broke it up in the schedule a little bit more. They didn't have this massive chunk of 15 teams have their break around the same time. Now, in the past, 10, 12, 14 teams could overlap 2 or 3 days, depending on when their break started and when it finished. But this year, they decided to do it together. Why that is, I really have no idea. Maybe it's the fact that players do actually enjoy going away together, which I was surprised to see, but a lot of players do take some of their vacation time and go away together. Now, when I'm on vacation, I don't want to see anybody. And I enjoy the people I work with just fine. And I enjoy some of my other people that I do some business with on the side. But when vacation time comes, I like a vacation. I mean, if we're going to be totally honest, sometimes I like a vacation from some people in my own family, to be honest with you. I like to take a vacation from them too. But such as it is, we are looking at the New Jersey Devils because there was a story on them, and I would be worried if I was a Devils fan. Because as the break, which started and will go for the next 14 days or so between all 31 teams, the story for the New Jersey Devils is there's a bunch of Devils taking their families down to Orlando. Now, if you are single, no family, let me tell you something. The furthest thing from a vacation is taking your family to Orlando. That is work. That is work. Okay? It's fun, but it's work. Now, I happen to love Florida, love Disney, big Disney guy, wife, huge Disney gal. We have family. My parents live in the Florida area, not too far from Orlando. So when we go down and visit, we'll frequent the Disney World. We took our little guy when he was 1, so he was a little too young to be at that rambunctious, 4 and 5-year-old stage. Like, that's nightmare stage. So I just want to impress upon you how easy we had it with a 1-year-old who was totally fine with taking a 3-hour nap in the middle of the day. Like, you're not going to get that out of a 5-year-old. So we had it that easy, and it was still long, exhausting. Like, Disney World is long. It's fun, but it's long and exhausting. So my point is this: the Devils have screwed this up, and I worry about them tanking in the second half because of the stupid decisions made by these 4 or 5 Devils. Now, I say this with tongue in cheek, but with some total seriousness. I mean, honest to goodness. Like, it is exhausting. Imagine being in that humidity all day long and the kids are running around, and I want a Mickey ice cream cone, and I want a Mickey-shaped Rice Krispie treat, my Rice Krispie Mickey, and I need the dollar, and let it go, and the thing in the roller coaster and the ride breaks down, and then you got to come back, and then your fast pass expired, and then you got a popcorn line, and who wants cotton candy, and this ride breaks, and then you're back on the other thing, and no, maybe we'll take, and then they tell you this, no, go to the hotel and take you can't go to the thing, you got this show is at this time, and who's got a thing, a reservation at the Bippity Boppity Boutique, and the whole, I mean, it's exhausting. It's exhausting. It is exhausting. And then you put the kids to bed and you get like a second wind, like, oh, maybe we'll go out and we'll have us like a steak and a nice couple beers, something like this. And then maybe you get to do it, and then you're exhausted, and the kid's up at 6 o'clock in the morning, and I want a Mickey Rice Krispie treat, and then let it go, and there's 7 dwarfs mine train of things and broken, and then you're back on the... It's exhausting. It's exhausting. And then, lunch reservation. You're in the Magic Kingdom, but you know where lunch reservation is? Epcot. And you got to get on 4 monorails and go to Epcot. You get in time for lunch. So you got to have lunch at Cinderella's Castle. And then guess where your next Fast Pass is? The Hollywood Studios. And then you're back in there and let it go. And then you're over the thing. And then it's a small world that is here. And that thing's stuck in your head all day long. And you're still looking for the Mickey Rice Krispie treat. And then and all you want to do is find that place that has the pretzels with the sweet cream in it. But you can't remember where it was last time you were there. And, you just need a 5-minute break. You can't get it, though. And it's just the whole, and then let it go. And the whole, it's just, this is not a vacation. This is not a vacation for these idiots. Andy Green and his wife, Rachel, Brian Boyle and his wife, Corey Schneider and his wife, Jill, Drew Stafford and his wife, Marcus Johansson and his wife. Between those combinations, they are bringing 8 kids, all under the age of 4. Green, Schneider, and Boyle each have 2 kids. Johansson has 1. The Staffords are bringing their older son, but leaving their 9-month-old twins at home with grandparents. Smart move. Smart move. It'll be a great trip, Green said. Naive. We're just spitballing what we wanted to do. There were a couple of different options, and that one seemed the most logical and the best. Green said the wives and kids flew to Orlando Sunday when the Devils were in the process of losing a 5-4 shootout against the Islanders at the Barclays Center. The players will be flying to Orlando together Monday, and everyone is returning in the evening on Thursday. The Devils will practice Friday before playing in Philadelphia Flyers on Saturday. $10 says the New Jersey Devils get destroyed by the Flyers on Saturday. That's the thing. As for how often they'll be at Disney World, Green said it won't be every day because the parents want to, keep some level of sanity on the trip. A little bit, Green said. We're not going every day, all day, but we'll probably do one day there and then we'll just relax and let the kids have a great time. Yeah, that doesn't exist in Disney World. Kids don't relax and have a great time. They run and scream and eat and run and scream. And I got to go to the bathroom and run and scream and eat. And again, this is not necessarily from personal experience because last time we went, kid was 1. It was easy. But you look around and you see what happens. And I want this toy and I want that toy and Rice Krispie Mickey and let it go. And the whole thing. As a world of love. And the Bippity Boppity Boutique. And who stole my tiara? And who stole my pirate sword? And nightmare. Dumbest mistake they could ever do. Dumbest way to handle it. You talk about, you fight. CBA upon CBA, 2 work stoppages just to get this 5-game break. And you spend it by going down to Disney World. Dumbest thing you could possibly do ever. Ever. Not only do I predict that the Devils will lose against the Flyers, but I sit here, tongue-in-cheek, but kind of serious, telling you that the New Jersey Devils will take a big slide in the second half. By the way, let's talk about that in all seriousness. The Islanders, who are built to go the distance in the playoffs. The Jordan Eberle thing was their last move to really get to a place where they can compete long-term. Now, their goaltending happens to have, really gone awry, and that's a whole other issue that they'll have to handle. But let's be honest, they're a team built for the playoffs. The Pittsburgh Penguins, defending Stanley Cup champions, were just outside a couple days ago, outside of the playoff picture looking in. The Islanders are outside looking in. Carolina, who is hung in there, are outside looking in. Pittsburgh and the Rangers have the last couple of wild card spots. What I'm saying is somebody is going to tank in the Metro Division, and the Devils are a strong possibility. They're the weakest team in this division. I like the Devils. I like the team. But if they don't do something to shore themselves up, I don't know how long they could lean on this team concept. And I know I'm kind of 180ing a little bit from where I was on them, but I've just been watching them a lot more lately, and I just am not in love with them. I really am not. And I love Brian Boyle. I love him a lot, but, Brian Gibbons, he's started off great. He's been able to maintain, but he's starting to slide a bit. He's starting to slide a bit. He was one of the reasons that this team got off to such a huge start, and he's got 12 goals, 10 assists in 41 games. That's 22 points. It's not like he's not having the greatest year of his career, because he is, and it'll certainly make him a hockey league, a pro hockey, a National Hockey League player for a while now. It will. I just don't like the way the rest of the team is performing. I just feel like they are, and of all of them, and they weren't picked to do well, and I get that, and they're a better team than what we all had assumed. They'll be in the mix for the playoffs for sure. I just am not as excited about them as I was in the past, and I haven't really been able to put my finger on why. Part of it is Brian Gibbons has begun to slide a little bit. Taylor Hall, Bratt, Heischer, and Butcher are their top scorers, and they're not outstanding stats. They don't have anybody to really rely on. You lose a Taylor Hall or a Will Butcher, and you find yourself in a world of trouble. And by the way, I'm never really overly excited about teams that have their defensemen leading the way as far as scoring points go, because although that can be, impressive, like who doesn't want to have a Will Butcher? You want your offensive players to really be leading the way. And Jesper Bratt and Taylor Hall are, as I look at the stats here, but I don't know. There's not a lot there. They have one 15-goal scorer right now, and that's Taylor Hall. Everybody else is at 12 and under. That's not a ton of offense. They're defensively a tight-as-hell team, and Corey Schneider has had one hell of a season so far. He's done amazing. Amazing. 2.67 goals against average. Again, the team game that they have is really, really good and really strong. It's just as you look at that Metro division and as it gets tougher, as Pittsburgh climbs into it, Carolina continues to hang around, so does Philly and the Islanders now. Islanders are actually there's two teams in between the Islanders and a playoff spot. I just feel like one of those teams is going to fall out of the mix, and I think the Devils might be one of them, sad to say. Because when you look at it, the Islanders are only 6 points behind them. So is Philly, and so is Carolina. They all have 46 points. Pittsburgh has 47, so there's no huge lead there. Columbus isn't that much better off, and they have 1 point less than the Devils do, and they've played 2 more games. But I like Columbus a lot more. I just like Columbus a lot more as a complete team. Just as a complete team in net, on D, coaching, offense. I just like them a whole lot better as a complete team. And I know what's his name has struggled a little bit here early on. Cam Atkinson, 6 goals and 7 assists is horrific for him in 32 games, especially after he signed that big deal. I think he'll settle down. I think he'll get back into the mix, and I think he'll start putting up some more points. Again, they don't have anybody. They don't even have a 15-goal scorer on their team. Taking a look at them, but I just think they're built better. I think their defense is better, and I think Bobrovsky is just better. I just do. I don't know. I just have a lot of faith in Columbus, and I think that Pittsburgh is going to surge, and I think the Islanders are going to surge, and it makes no sense to me. But Carolina has done really good, and I think that they're going to be a constant problem. Now, what really makes me bring this up is the Islanders and Devils game the other day. It was close as all hell, but the Islanders pulled it out and deserved to win that game. That was the first time those two teams played. So there's going to be a lot of divisional play within that Metro division, and I think it's going to become a little bit of a bloodbath. I really, really do. It's going to become a little bit of a bloodbath. And I don't know if the Devils really have what it takes night in and night out to play the Islanders, the Rangers, Pittsburgh, especially if Pittsburgh continues to play the way they've been playing over the last 10. They're only at 500, but they're starting to definitely turn it around their last 2 or 3 games. They're on a 2-game winning streak right now, for instance, and I think that is definitely worrisome. So outside of the, horrific idea of going to Disney World for some of their big stars, I think that the Devils have a lot to prove in the second half, and we'll have to wait and see. Also, come the deadline, who are you going to go and pick up and try and get moving forward? I think the Rangers are going to be super aggressive. I think the Islanders make a move for sure. I could totally see Columbus being in on some of these players. Toronto, we know, needs defensemen. I think they'll be super active. I don't have a ton of faith in Boston on the Atlantic side staying in this, by the way. I really don't. The only advantage that Boston has is the rest of their division just stinks. And their division, Boston's division, is not going to be pressing anywhere near as hard as the Metro is, because outside of Boston, the next team in the Atlantic close enough is Detroit, and they only have 41 points, and Boston has 53. So, there's nobody really there pushing. That Atlantic division is super depressing. Between Detroit, Florida, Montreal, Ottawa, and Buffalo, you have the biggest group of underachieving losers in that group. I mean, everybody thought Montreal, Ottawa, Buffalo, and Detroit were all going to be better. And they're just not. They're really just not. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about this Lias kid. Oh my God, am I in love with this kid? In love with this youngster. Look at this guy. Look at Lias Anderson. Now, Ranger fans, you guys got to be super proud, because here's a kid who's on the rise. He really is. Playing in the World Junior Championships the other day. He is a 2017 first-round pick of the New York Rangers. He's the captain of Team Sweden. Sweden loses in the gold medal game 2-1 to Canada. He's not happy about how the game goes. Post-game, they're stuffing the medals on top of the players' heads. All right, here, let me refresh this for you here. Here, they're stuffing the medals on top of the heads. Look. Here he is. Here's Lias Anderson right here. Oh, sorry. Hold on. Let me get rid of that lower third for you. My apologies. My apologies. Again, I'm going to take off a couple of show host points for the lackluster effort tonight. So here's the kid, and they just put the medal on him. As you can see, he has already begun to take it off. He'll skate away, and he will literally chuck the medal into the stands. That is a kid I can be proud of. Let's take a look. Here he is. Takes the medal off. Now you don't see it. There he is, 24 in the background. Now watch. We'll zoom into it, and there goes the medal. And there's the guy who caught it. Here it is again. There he is. Skates away. Get the zoom in here. And see you later, medal. I'm not in the mood for this garbage. Give me second place. Don't give me second place. Now, surprisingly enough to me, and I shouldn't be surprised by this poor kid caught a lot of flack for this. He caught a lot of flack for this. And I can't understand why, because honestly, in a time where political correctness is at an all-time high, and the backlash for political correctness is at an all-time high, I really love this behavior. Now, again, you know my story. I'm a father of a 2-year-old kid, 2-year-old boy, and my baby girl was born just in July. So my kids have not really reached that era of, competitive hockey and soccer and t-ball and all that stuff. But I do honestly hate the notion of everybody gets a trophy. I am not a fan of this whatsoever. So in my little stupid life and my dumb little, high school hockey career, and, even in other things too, outside of sports, I've suffered some pretty bad losses. And although painful and extremely hateful at the time that I had to go through them, I found them to be long-term rewarding. It was a good thing for me. There was plenty of times where I wasn't picked for things in high school, not sports, but, wanted to be in this club or be in this program or doing this. And I didn't necessarily make it. And it was hugely disappointing for me. But you know what happened? A couple days later, weeks later, whatever, I got into something else and I turned out to love it that much more. And it was better. When I was going to high school, loved playing hockey. And my high school didn't have a hockey team. Not that. And by the way, the tradition of high school hockey in New York is super rich. And there was a ton of players that actually played high school hockey in New York City that went on to become National Hockey League players. A good handful. So the tradition is rich, but it wasn't, overly huge. But when I went to high school, it started its resurgence and its growth. So midway through high school, when I was a sophomore, actually, my school announced we're going to have a hockey team next season. So I got to play junior and senior year high school hockey. So in our very first year of existence, brand new team, we were the Vegas. I'm just putting this together. We were the Vegas Golden Knights of the New York City High School Hockey Association. In our very first year, we went from a team that did not exist to not only making the playoffs, but we made a run all the way to the city championships. And let me paint a quick picture for you. We go 2 out of 3 best of series, right? I forget even how we won or lost the first 2 games, but it goes to a deciding game 3. And our little startup team is playing against the team that has dominated this division for years. And we're winning the game with 13 seconds left. 13. We're winning. And controversial play at the net. And our goalie seems to have it, but there's no whistle. Puck gets shoved into the net. Goal gets called with 11.39. I forget what it is now. I used to know it because that's how much it held me down all these years. But or 10.9, whatever, 10 seconds, whatever it was. We get scored on. They tie the game. We lose the game in overtime. We were the Cinderella team, by the way. And I can't even tell you. Newspaper articles, and by the way, and nothing against, Sheboygan or wherever you're from and you're listening or watching this, but we're in New York City papers. This is the #1 media market. And granted, it's like page, 79, but still, we're in the New York Post and the Daily News and all these things. We got a good amount of ink off of it. Like, look at this. Here's the team. And by the way, I come from a school that's pretty famous in the area, not so much for the hockey. But our baseball and basketball teams, NBA players, Kenny Anderson went to the same high school. So it's a well-known school. So, the fact that we were now dominating in hockey first year out was pretty interesting. And by the way, we weren't dominating. We just got into the playoffs and we went on a run. So there was a lot of excitement behind it. So with 10.9 seconds left or whatever it was, we get scored on. We lose the game in overtime. It's devastating. It's devastating. And it was tough. And, we didn't get a trophy. We never got a trophy. We never got congratulated for it. But we got pissed. And we got angry. And we said, next year is our year. And you know what? And that got us the courage to get all the way back into the championship for a second year in a row. A championship which we also lost. And was very devastated by. But it wasn't as close. But I think we did take that one to 3 games too. But the point is this, I still rely on those feelings and emotions today. Whenever I have a little bit of a defeat or a setback, I still think about that time. And I don't know how I would have turned out if somebody would have, patted me on the back and said, you still did good and here's your trophy. Look, people congratulated me and they were like, look, you made it in 2 years in a row and it was impressive and all that. But that chip on our shoulder that we never won still affects us all to this day. Like, I'm not in touch with a ton of the guys I played hockey with, but I am a few. And there's still a chip on our shoulder. Like, it's still like if somebody came to us all and were like, do you want to play a rematch of that game all these years later? Yes, our answers would all be yes. We will shove our fat asses back into our equipment and our high school jerseys and figure it all out. So I like this Lias Anderson's attitude. You know, I like it. To hell with second place. It ain't good enough. He was pissed, and he showed exactly what he thought. Take this medal and throw it in the stands. It's useless to me. Let it be something for somebody else. I didn't win. I lost. There's no first, second, and third to this kid. There's win or bust. And God bless his soul. I wish we had more people like this in the world. Thanks a lot for the second place medal. Here, somebody else can have it. I'm not going to use it. I love this kid. How could you not? Look at the gumption. Look at the gumption on him. Let's go back to it. I just love everything about it. Oh, thanks for my medal. Let me just take it here and go ahead. Continue your little ceremony. I'm going to skate over here and here you go, buddy. Here, you take it. You have better use for it than I would. It's useless to me. Second place sucks. I love it. I love it. I think we need more of this in the world. So there was a lot of, obviously, flack in this. How could he do this? He's representing his country. That's pretty disrespectful. Think of all the people at the and then this and that. To hell with that. I love it. I love it. Now, I'm not saying that every kid in every tournament should take their second place trophies or their silver medals and throw them away. But I do believe that this type of behavior should not be shunned whatsoever. That's exactly how this kid felt in that moment. Now, if he had an hour to get over it before they gave him medals, because again, this takes place right after the game, maybe he doesn't toss it over the boards. But this is when they did it, and this is how he felt, and he threw the damn thing over the boards. And I love it. And I think we need more of that. And this is the kind of stuff that I'm going to show my little guy when he's awake and he's up and he's playing. He's sleeping right now. But when he's conscious and he can understand, this is the kind of things that I think we need to show our kids more. Like, this kid's not happy with second place. There's a certain amount of accomplishment you should feel when you come in second. And it should be down here and this much, not up here and this much. And I feel like everybody gets a trophy is this much. You came in second place. That means something. It's not as good as first. It means you were not as good. And this kid feels that, and he doesn't want that reminder. So take this damn medal. I don't want it. I love it. I love the fire. If you're a Ranger fan, you got to be damn excited this kid is in your system. Damn excited. He will forever be known, just like Milbury will forever be known as the guy who went up into the stands and hit somebody with their own shoe. This kid will forever be known by the kid who threw his medal into the stands. And by the way, it's only a World Junior Championship medal. I mean, if it was an Olympic medal, I don't know if he would have done it. But it's a World Junior. He did it. He threw it, and he's owning it. I love it. I think this kid should be celebrated and should not be shunned. Because in life, everybody doesn't get a medal. Life is harsh sometimes. And this kid doesn't want to celebrate a non-win. So good for him. I'm going to leave you on that note. Interesting Monday show here. Yeah, the only silver Lias wants is a silver in the Stanley Cup. Eddie V gets the last word. I'll see you guys tomorrow night on a new episode of the Hockey Talk Show. Remember to rate and review on the podcast. Hit the like button on this episode if you're on Facebook or YouTube, and share it around.